All right, so let's figure out how we find the guide tones. I'm going to use a great Jerome Kern tune called All the Things You Are to illustrate this. We're not playing the melody, but we'll hear the chords, and I'll show you what I would do to find these. This is written in the book. You need to check out chapter 20 in the Real Jazz Pedagogy book. If you don't have chapter 20, you need to get that book. It's easily available on Amazon.com, also at jazzbooks.com, the Jamie Aebersold site. You can also get it at Barnes & Noble. You can also get it at outskirtspress.com. These videos are coordinated to that book, and these are just sound representations so that you can hear what you're looking at in the book. You definitely need to be able to look at what I'm talking about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to find guide tones and what guide tones are. Guide tones are the notes that have to move by half step when the chords change. This is really what we mean by playing the changes. We often use that term in a generic or general way. Do you know the changes? Do you know the chords of this tune? Can you play the changes? But more specifically, it means, do you play what changes when one chord moves to another chord? And that's critical. So we're going to figure out how that works. It's really kind of easy to figure out how this would work if I'm playing, say, a major chord to a minor chord. Let's say I'm playing this chord, and it changes to this. It's easy to hear that. You can tell I changed there from major to minor. But it's a little more difficult when you're dealing with 2-5-1s, because the 2 and the 5 are on the same key as each other, and the 5 and the 1 are in the same key as each other, just by definition. That's what 2-5-1 means. It means the 2 is functioning in the key of the 1, and the 5 is functioning in the key of the 1. So now I have no notes that are different. If I take my scale tones, for example, and I'm playing in C major, then my D minor chord and scale are going to be no sharps or flats. My G dominant chord and scale are going to be no sharps or flats. And my C major scale and chord are going to be no sharps or flats. So now how do I play changes? How do I make you hear that I went from major or from minor to dominant and from dominant to major, so that I can make you hear a 2-5? So you're hearing. Those are the notes. Those are the guide tones that define what those chords are, so that we know we've changed chords. Well, how did I find those? Since no notes have to change, how do we find notes that have to change? Well, all right, here's the secret. D Dorian. I'm going to take all the notes of D Dorian and I'm going to compare them to G major and see if they all work on G major. So if I take D, we're just going up the scale now. D, does that work on G? Oh, sure, it's the 5th. E, yeah, that's the 13th or the 6th. F, that's the flat 7. G, yes, that's the root. A, well, yeah, that's the 9th. B, sure, that's the 3rd. C, disqualified. Why doesn't the C work? Because it's the 4th note of the scale. Now, on a major chord or a dominant chord, you may not play the 4th note of the scale in an important position. I should demonstrate that at the piano. Let me just quickly demonstrate the 4th note of the scale problem that we have. So I'm going to take a major chord and play all the notes of that scale. Here's our C major. This is a C major chord. Here's a C major scale. Now let me play every note of the scale with that chord so we can hear how they each sound. Note of the scale. You hear the problem. It just doesn't work. Now if we raise the 4th, but the fourth note of the scale does not work. That is also true in dominant. So right now play the same thing with dominant chord. All the notes of the dominant scale. There's the fourth note of the scale. For some reason, this is the favorite note of high school improvisers. I've judged so many festivals, and the students like. Yikes! So we've got to teach our kids that if you're on a dominant chord or a major chord, in other words, if the chord has a major third in it, the fourth note of the scale does not work. Now, if you're in a minor chord, very pretty note. Left diminished chord, pretty. No problem there. But if we have the major third in the chord, the fourth note is taboo. And I even suggest practicing major scales. With no fourth in it. Then we don't risk that. It is possible to use it in passing. It's okay to use it in passing, just don't ever use it in a strong melodic position. That's really problematic. I had a student one time who I taught that concept. He came back the next week and he says, "Hey, you know that fourth note of the scale thing that you were talking about last week?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I went home and I messed around with it on the piano." He says, "I kind of like that sound actually." I said, "You are not allowed to like that sound." And we talked about it some more. We have to customize ourselves and our students to recognize that we can't put that fourth note of the scale in a strong melodic position or in an accented spot. So there's just a bit on that. Thank you. All right, now that means that I have to change, when I play the flat 7 of the 2 chord, it has to change down a half step to the 3 of the 5 chord or it'll become the fourth note of the scale. Problem. If we did the same thinking from the 5 chord to the 1 chord, we're going to get the same answer. All the notes work, except the flat 7 on the dominant chord has to go down a half step to 3 in the major chord, or it will become the fourth note of the scale, treble. So I'm going to illustrate this now. Where am I going to put my half steps on this tune, All the Things You Are? Be sure and look at this in chapter 20. Let me get this started. This starts with a little intro. There's an 8-bar intro here.
1, 2, 3,
It's what we call
4.
the Bud Powell intro. Jerome Kern didn't write it, but it became part of a lot of the time that's played with this tune. So here's my notes that I've chosen as half steps. Those are my Guidetones. If I play those Guidetones, you're going to hear the tune, even if I turn off the tape. By the way, this is coming from the Jamie Ebersold play-along series. If you're not familiar with that, you need to go to jazzbooks.com. These are critical learning materials for your jazz students. You get the play-along, meaning you get the rhythm section on a CD that you can play with like this. It's super helpful and helps to develop the ears. So let me show you what I mean here. if I play limping on that example at the end there, sorry. But that gives you an idea of how these guide tones would work. Now this presupposes that I've already practiced the chords. I should be able to play etc. I should also be able to do that with scales. So here it is with scales. I probably should do this so that you can hear it with the play along. Actually, let me play the scales with the play along. So here are the scales as they're written in the book. Just can't get a breath. Brain cells dying there, sorry. You'd have to just stop and take breaths. I'm trying not to breathe for the demonstration, but it's just too much. It's wiping me out. So anyway, you get the idea. We play the scales with it, we play the chords with it, we play the guide tones with it. We can even practice patterns with it. And of course, finally, we're just organizing on the spot and improvising on it. I'm going to demonstrate this more in chapter 21 with the blues and with rhythm changes and with Afternoon in Paris. You get a little bit better feel for how that works. But I think we'll stop here. That's a good demonstration, I think, of what to do with guide tones and how to approach scales and chords on a tune like All the Things You Are. Thank you.